After a dreadful conclusion to the original series, in recent years Dexter has seen somewhat of a revival, a resurrection if you will, with multiple shows spawning and continuing to capture that original's magic. It is proof that there's still plenty of stories to tell with this fascinating character, with the latest attempt being Dexter Resurrection. That takes the total number of Dexter series up to 5, so for the second time this year, let's look at all of them and rank them from worst to best. Dexter the Early Cuts was never going to be anywhere else but bottom given the general format of the series. It's not even a full-length show, it's literally a web series consisting of multiple shorts, so naturally that's going to find itself in at last place. Given the low budget of this web series, every short consists of a comic book-esque animation style which, to be honest, becomes quite jarring. There are 3 micro seasons of this web series and the animation does get better as it moves along, but still it can be very hard to watch. Visuals aside, this series doesn't really offer too much. It kind of just lays out some more scenarios that we've seen in the Dexter series before this, but given the format, just a very condensed version, therefore making it not very interesting and quite forgettable. Alongside this, considering not many people have watched it, the actors aren't super invested either, mainly Michael C. Hall, whose voice acting just seems like he's not putting any effort in at all. Given everything that we've seen in all the Dexter shows, there's no real need to watch this, as I don't even think it's canon anymore. You should know. Dexter New Blood is what saw this revival of this franchise, with a strong return for the character and a drastically different tone to what we've been used to. This show obviously comes back trying to fix the ending of that mainline series, and for the most part it does a very strong job of doing that. I mentioned that new environment and tone. It's very refreshing because you still have the character of Dexter who feels like himself, albeit with all this time that's passed. So seeing him in this new environment with his new morals is just a fascinating dynamic. And when you chuck in the return of his son Harrison, it just spices things up even more. The nice intimate setting does allow for a fascinating side plot to occur. Ultimately, all the hard work done throughout the season is somewhat soured after a very disappointing finale, one which I hate more than the original series finale. I'll put my hands up and say I was very skeptical about Dexter Original Sin. It just felt like they were jumping on the bandwagon while this franchise was trendy and just pumping out a load of unnecessary content. However, I was very, very wrong, and this was actually a brilliant prequel series. Looking at this surface level, I just thought it was going to be a cheap knockoff with no real thought put into it. However, it was the complete opposite. There was a lot of care put into this to make it feel like the original show, whether that being from the tone, the environment, or even the excellent casting of the younger versions of characters. Yeah, it was jarring at first, but they quickly soon morphed into a younger version of those characters, which I found very believable, whether it's from character traits, mannerisms, or even appearance on some of them. It was actually quite creepy how accurate it was. So yeah, it was quite easy to buy into this being a prequel story, and therefore it was fun to watch all these scenarios play out, and it provoked a feeling which is quite hard to capture in the modern day, and that is nostalgia. This was so accurate that it felt like I was watching another season of the original series, and with a strong main plotline to go alongside that. Yeah, there were some predictabilities and some lazy writing here and there, but ultimately I thought this was a very enjoyable watch, and one that I was very wrong about. Resurrection had the familiar task of trying to fix a Dexter ending, and like it did with the last attempt, it was a strong effort. Again, there is a change of environment, but this environment is drastically different to what came before, with the intimate small town experience. Here we have the overcrowded New York City, which is full of endless possibilities, which allow for Dexter to flex his traits and fully embrace his instincts. Again, this makes it feel like a natural continuation of Dexter's story, whilst also being entirely unique and different. There's the incorporation of old and new characters, both equally strong and fascinating, which just showcases how strong this writing team still is. Michael C. Hall provides one of his stronger Dexter performances and continues to be great, as well as the rest of the A-list cast, most notably being Peter Dinklage's portrayal as the antagonist in this series, who was very different to what we've had before, therefore making him quite interesting and one of the strongest in the entire franchise. Dexter and Harrison's dynamic has always been interesting since the return in New Blood. Harrison himself has been quite unlikable in the past. Here, he gets a lot more screen time and development. That dynamic with Dexter does grow stronger and more fascinating as it becomes more integral to the story and just Dexter as a character. One of the disappointments of New Blood was how they teased Angel Batista, but then ultimately didn't follow it up. Here, I felt like they played out this plot line that I wanted, and we got to see Dexter and Angel face to face once again. Now that Angel has the revelation of who Dexter really is, it just made it even more intriguing as the season went on. The writing is back to its best, full of clever little plot lines where there's a few twists and turns in there, or the characters it's created with their dialogue as well. I was very surprised that Dexter Resurrection was this strong and consistent, and ultimately it was very close to missing out, and bonus points for actually nailing a finale as well. But securing the top spot yet again is the original series Dexter. Funny enough, I said this in my previous Dexter video 6 months ago. Number one being Dexter, of course, and I can probably spoil it and say this is going to be my number one pick when Dexter Resurrection comes out as well. While I was right, I didn't expect it to be this close. This is such a fresh concept within this crime genre which has a lot of familiarity with it. And not only is that premise fascinating, but from it comes also a fascinating character who's quite complex. They have these violent urges and are a serial killer. Yet the way they utilize that makes you question the morality of all of it, because, you know, obviously he is committing murder, but he is doing it to only bad people, so it creates such a interesting thought process which obviously translates into the show and its characters. And with that premise, every sort of scenario is played out in the series, with most of them being strong and others consisting of an incest plotline. The tone and setting is full of characters, and those characters themselves are very charismatic and likable and feel like genuine people in this sort of environment. Despite all the blood and murder, there is enough charm and humor sprinkled in amongst all of it to make sure it's not a completely miserable experience. For such a dark concept, there is surprisingly a lot of funny moments in there, so it really has a lot to offer in that regard. As most shows that run for this long, it isn't always perfect. It wraps up in infamous fashion with such a jarring ending. However, everything that came before that, for the most part, is excellent and one of my favorite TV shows of all time. So despite a surprisingly close call, the OG remains on top. Let me know what your ranking is down below and what you thought of the new Dexter Resurrection and where they could go in the future with this franchise. While you are there, if you could like and subscribe, that would be very appreciated. And I'm trying to experiment more with TikTok and YouTube Shorts, so if you could follow there too, that would mean a lot to me. But yeah, thank you once again for watching this video, and if you want to see any more rankings, I'll leave a clickable card up in the corner here, and I hope you find something you're looking for.